I'm Anne Emery. You're watching DataViz on the Go, the series where you learn DataViz time savers inside everyday software like Excel. And in this video, I'm going to try to convince you to use more graphs, which is really counterintuitive. People think that more graphs means more time required. Not necessarily. I'm going to show you the workarounds. People think that more graphs means more pages of a report or more slides of a slide deck. They think that more graphs might mean more confusing. But sometimes the opposite is true. So let's look at this example. You know the drill. This is nobody's real data set, but it's inspired by a real project. And you don't have these exact numbers anyway, but you might have three different things, three different variables, three different categories, three different units. These are different units. The number of different events is apples and oranges, qualitatively different from the number of participants at those events. And that is apples and oranges, qualitatively different from the number of training days that those events lasted. Okay. So think about your data sets. Where do you have things that you want to compare, but you can't make a direct comparison because they're just different? They're just apples and oranges different. You might have in your real data set timeframes, months, quarters, years. Of course, in many projects, we have patterns over time. You're not going to have these real numbers, but imagine like if these are different units, you might have some little numbers versus some big numbers. Okay. I bet you have a situation like this in your workplace. Now, in the real version of this project that I can't show to you for obvious reasons, what they had done was that, they had a table like this. The table was pretty easy to understand, just, simple, right? Just a table. And they went to insert and they grabbed a chart. And then what does Excel do? I don't want to pick on Excel. All the software programs would do this to you, but it graphs them all together, right? Like if you highlight all the numbers in your table together, then they get graphed together. But do you see the problem? These are apples and oranges, different things. We don't exactly want to compare the number of events versus participants versus training days. They're like related, but not directly related, different units of analysis. So when you have that happen, you need different charts. You need a different chart for each category, variable, unit of analysis. One for the number of events with its own scale, because it has its own units, with its own color for simple categorization. The number of participants needs its own graph, its own scale, its own color. Number of training days, its own scale, its own color. These are three separate graphs, aka small multiples, but they are very carefully aligned. They are the exact same width. They have the exact same demarcations or the numbers of demarcations. Like it's a different scale, but the gray lines go across. So it's like symmetrical-ish, right? Now, people think, oh, this is going to take 3 times as long. I have to make 3 separate charts. You do not. Okay, I'm going to show you how to make this one. So let's say you highlight your whole table, same as usual. You go up to insert, same as usual. You grab your line chart, same as usual. We're going to do this one, the most common one. And, we get this draft I already showed you. I would recommend doing the bare minimum edits really, really quickly. Like, what would we do here? Like we delete the legend because the words in the legend are going to appear in the graph title instead. You might, pick out the font size you want. This is going in a 1-pager in Word. So we do like Word size font, a little darker. Like you do like some bare minimum edits, right? And then, make it narrower. Think like, oh, if this is going into Word to make a 1-pager, how wide can it be? Like approximately this wide. Okay. So pretend this is fully formatted. The fully formatted version would look like more like this though, but it's kind of like partially a little bit formatted. And then here's what you do. You click in the middle of the chart, not this, not this, not this, not this, the middle white space. So you get the interior border, the inner rectangle. Do a right click, go to select data, and you just use the checkboxes. Look, and you say, nope, I don't want those two. So you're not creating one whole chart and editing it. And then you do a whole nother chart and you edit it. And then a whole other third chart and edit it. You just make one template. And then you use the checkboxes to say, okay, well, that one, that's that chart. I would adjust the scale, before I was done. And then you copy paste, Control C, Control V. Click in the middle of the chart, the white space, again, right click, again, select data, again, and you pick the next thing, okay? And then you change the scale on that one. Changing the scale is just you click on the scale, you do a right click, you format the axis, you decide what should the min and the max be, how many demarcations. And let's say if I want these all to have be in fourths or so, maybe this one will go from 0 to 4,000 with a unit every 1,000. Same over here, right? Like, how could I make this go into fourths? Like, could it go to 100? It can. Okay, because the highest is only 98. Like this. It takes this long. 0 to 100, increments of 25, so that the scales are the same, okay? Copy, paste, click in the middle, right click, select data, pick your next one, your different unit of analysis, the apples and oranges, different things. Adjust the scale. Okay, when you're done, you very carefully put them next to each other, like that. And then you click them all, shape format, align, top, group them, okay? And then you can resize them a little bit if you need to. That's basically all I did down here. What else did I do? I added a marker. I added the label to the last point, okay? I also tried this as an area chart just because sometimes one lonely line, like this one, even though it's darker and thicker than the gray grid lines, sometimes it just doesn't stand out enough. There's not enough ink. It doesn't have enough of these pre-attentive attributes. It doesn't have enough of these pre-attentive characteristics to grab our attention. So if there's only one line on the chart, I usually try an area chart too, and then scroll, back and forth, share it with my client to see which one they prefer. In Word, it would look something like this. Here's the area chart. Here's the line chart. Maybe you'd have a title for your one-page summary. Maybe you'd have a couple short paragraphs with some intro information explaining what you did, why it matters, key patterns, etc. And then look, these are just the Excel charts that have been grouped together that are all kind of pasted in. Sometimes Word does this thing where it thinks the chart's up there. I don't know why it does that. That's just a weird quirk of Word, okay? They're just here. Different units need different charts. If they're sort of related, like these are, it's the same time periods, it's the same general topic, make small multiples. Put them side by side so people can see whether the patterns are related. But, side by side is not the same as on top of each other, intertwined on the same chart. It doesn't necessarily have to take longer. You don't need any fancy software to do this. You're making one template chart, and then you click in the middle in the select data menu, and you just use the checkboxes to check and uncheck the one thing at a time that you need. Give this a try, and if you want to actually try on this exact one, just scroll down below the video, and you can download this exact Excel file and the exact Word doc if you'd like.